welcome to the show, folks. Welcome to the Exiled Minds podcast with me, Liam Martin. Hope you had a nice day. Today we've got an episode on alchemy. This will be the fifth episode today. I think it's the fifth. Just double check, yeah. Fifth episode today. Episode on alchemy. We're going to have a look at the history of that. Alchemy, of course, is the thing famed for, can you turn lead into gold sort of thing, make yourself rich. So I thought we'll have a little discussion on that today, because it kind of comes up in other sort of philosophical things, and there's science that comes from it and stuff. So yeah, I thought I'll have a look at alchemy today. So let's look at the origins. Alchemy from the sciences of Kemet to modern times. Kemet, okay, that's an ancient name for Africa. Course, known to be the cradle of civilization, so a lot of stuff's gonna go back to there, especially if it's old. So anyway, yeah. So we'll get straight into it then, and we'll see. As always, go for some standard reference points from the beginning. See what Wikipedia's got to say about alchemy. What is alchemy? What's it all about? Let's find out. Okay, so Wikipedia references alchemy as being from Arabic. The Arabic word is alchemia. It's from ancient Greece. They say kahmia. Oh, I said that completely wrong. But yeah, it's an ancient branch of natural philosophy, philosophical and proto-scientific, meaning like proto as in before science, like the founder sort of thing. Proto-scientific tradition that was historically practiced in China, India, and the Muslim world, and then in Europe as well. So in its Western form, alchemy was first tested in a number of texts that were sort of considered a bit pseudo, but yeah, from the Greco-Roman Egypt during the first few centuries. So alchemists basically were attempting to purify, mature, and perfect certain materials. Okay, and the common aims were to do what was known as Chrysophia, the transmutation of base metals, basically. So you could take the classic one is lead, and that was considered a base metal, and then they would be transmuted into noble metals. In particular, obviously, is looking for turning it into gold. So it was also to do heavily linked. See, this with stuff about alchemy is also turning metals from one to the other, so it gets them more precious. But also, a lot of this was to do with trying to find that ever, elusive elixir of immortality. So that was the thing. That was heavily involved with alchemy. And of course, that's where the word chemistry comes from, which we'll get to. So yeah, there's some stuff to do with this in chemistry and immortality. So it was quite interesting, especially considering Jeff Bezos has got all them scientists together recently saying, here's a load of money, try and make immortality a thing, sort of thing. But yeah, that quest for immortality has led a few people in history to stuff, which we'll get to. But it also led to the creation of Paracelsus. It was supposed to be able to sort of cure any disease. The perfection of the human body and soul was thought to result in the alchemical or magnus opus, which is known as the great work. Okay. The concept of creating the philosopher's stone was invariably connected with all of this stuff. Yeah, that's kind of like the thing that you're sort of trying to get to, sort of thing, or it's the key. Is a bit sort of mysterious about what is this philosopher's stone, So let's carry on reading to what Wikipedia's had to say about that. So we'll see what Teal Swan has got to say about it. She's got videos on a whole bunch of stuff to do with this, and especially to do with astrology and interpersonal relations, and a lot of that's got kind of alchemical sort of talk involved, because you sort of can change your emotions and sort of transmute your emotions from one to the other, and it's heavily linked to astrology as well. Different planets be representing different metals, so you can then kind of like look at what planets are coming in and how you can sort of transmute that metal to this one, because that's what you need right now, sort of thing. So it can get pretty complicated, all this stuff. So that's why we have a sort of deep dive into this and, you know, take a look into it. But Teal Swan, she's a bit of one of them sort of spiritual advisor type people on YouTube, really popular. So got a nice little quote from one of her videos. It was she says, well, she puts it like this: simply, alchemy is the art form of liberating something from its fixed physical properties. Like other sciences, early alchemists used specific scientific processes, techniques that could be replicated in the lab, but unlike other sciences, you cannot separate the scientific process of alchemy from the hermetic principles from spirituality. Those principles and spiritual truths are the basis upon which alchemy stands. This is meaning that you would have no hope of transcending the fixed properties of the physical dimension without sort of you couldn't transcend the physical properties in this dimension of like transforming something from lead to gold without first gaining access to the higher truths of the universe through spiritual practice and mastery, which is why this links it all into astrology and sort of dealing with emotions and makes it all seem a bit sort of magical, because in a sense it's like, in order to be able to do things like transmute something from a base metal to something considered more precious, to a noble metal, you kind of like, you'd have to learn stuff that would make you have knowledge that's kind of greater than that. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's a bit of a, that's how I think of it. It's almost like a bit of a paradox. Like, if in the quest of figuring out how to make gold, you by necessity end up figuring out how to sort of, let's say, ascend to a higher plane kind of talk. Do you know, it's almost like that kind of talk. So then you like won't care about the gold. So it's kind of ironic, because it's like almost like once you've battled all that way to get to the destination, to get the treasure at the end, and when you get there, sort of don't want the treasure because it's like something better. So maybe, I don't know. I think that's interesting. But yeah, I mean, it was quite heavily guarded as well. I mean, I suppose if you could make a load of gold out of it, if you figured it out, then I suppose it would be guarded. But then if it leads to other stuff as well, sort of spiritual enlightenment, then maybe it was heavily guarded and coded like that too. Because they're like kind of code books, alchemists. You know, because the alchemists did publish books. Okay. And they were sort of trying to follow a sort of scientific process, but at the same time they were encoding things in like complicated allegories and stories, and sometimes the characters and the actions stand for something other than what they seem to be. You know, so they have these sort of code books known as the Decnamen. So they've got these Decnamen books, and it's almost like, I mean, there's loads of them. So it's like some, you know, one of the pastimes of back in the day was to try and go through these books and try and work out some secrets. And I suppose it was like an early conspiracy theory, you know, sort of thing. You've got these code books with hidden meanings in there. You've got to try and figure out the stories to figure out, you know, what metals to do. But like say, I mean, the noble metals, just for quick reference, there was basically gold represented the sun, and silver represented the moon. They were considered the noble metals, and I suppose they're the valuable ones that might think of gold and silver. The base metals were, that is, mercury and copper, would be like, Mercury is obviously planet Mercury, copper would be the planet Venus. Okay, iron would be the planet Mars, which kind of makes sense, like iron's the sort of weapon of war, or the evil metal, as the African shamans call it, this weapon of war, metal, iron. You know, tin's the metal for Jupiter, and lead's the metal for, they call it slow Saturn. You know, it's a big gas giant, isn't it, you know. So that's where it links into sort of astrology as well, and then they've all got these sort of metals assigned to them, as I mentioned. And yeah, and then they get these things, agents of transmutation. You get the particulars that sort of you get these agents that will only sort of do one thing. And you're trying to get these universals, which are like philosopher stones, which sort of can do a lot of stuff. It's almost like the Infinity Stones. I always thought that in the comics and the Marvel films, I think that the Infinity Stones almost used to remind me of them, not just because it's a stone, you know, the Philosopher's Stone, but yeah, it's almost like because the different colours on there, like they've got different properties, sort of thing, and when combined, they're like the ultimate power. So it's almost like, maybe that in itself is a sort of allegory or a bit of subtext for, it takes all sorts of different elements to be coming together, and then it sort of makes things more than the sum of the parts. It's a bit of a philosophical thing in philosophy, and I suppose in Buddhist Eastern philosophies as well. It's like that thing in Buddhism where is what is a flower? When you take a flower apart and look at all of its parts, is it still like a flower? It's just one of them, kind of Zen high cone stuff, Zen cone things. But yeah, let's carry on reading, see what it says about this in the official text. So we've got alchemy then. So we've got people trying to do stuff, hoping to. So we always think of it as trying to make gold, trying to turn base metals into something more sort of precious. And in doing so, it seems that these spiritual practices and knowledges that we have to kind of learn in the process. Okay. So it says the search for a universal transmutation agent was called Chrysophia. It refers to the artificial production of gold, most commonly, and by alleged transmutation of base metals to lead, which was talked about. But interestingly, if I just share this screen here, it shows you that in this word, I don't even can even say it. I'm trying to get the computer to read it.
Chrysophia
Did a worse job than me, but yeah, all the links will be in there. So if you look at this book, right, or if you look at the symbol of it, it's got the Ouroboros symbol. So on the video you can see it's the snake sort of eating its tail, the sort of symbol of infinity. And they're saying that that was on the book from the Chrysophia of Cleopatra, and I thought that was quite an interesting little segue there, because that stuff is like, well, that came from the front cover of the box saga. It's got the same thing. So for me it was like a bit mind blowing, because it got that the box saga that I refer to sometimes. It's kind of, yeah, it's relevant to it. And if you read, I don't want to give a spoiler away, but if you read the book and the snake eating its sort of tail, it's kind of amusing when you read it from the box saga perspective. So yeah, definitely worth sort of checking that book out. I would recommend it. But anyway, let's go on. It's just what I was interested in, the snake eating its tail like infinity. I thought, that's interesting to go into the alchemical stuff. But anyway, yeah, as we mentioned, I've got the Magnus Opus as part of the alchemical traditions in the history. I mentioned that earlier, so we'll just have a quick overview. What's the Magnus Opus? Because remember, they called it the Great Work. Okay, so let's have a look at that. So the Great Work in Latin, Magnus Opus, is an alchemical term for the process of working with the prima materia to create the Philosopher's Stone. It has been used to describe personal and spiritual transmutation in the Hermetic traditions. So we talked about the spiritual transformation. So it's also attached to laboratory processes and chemical and color changes used as models for individual sort of like individuation of processes, like sort of talking about, like, say these different elements and stuff going on. Because I think when you're trying to purify metals in metallurgy, so you get these impurities. So sometimes they burn different colours. I think there's this thing of, that's why they thought it was pseudoscientific, because I think they thought that a lot of the time people are misunderstanding just like impurities being burnt off with processes taking place and the magic's working, but there's a lot more. It seems that there's a lot more to this, because it's been going a long time. But we'll go a bit further into it. So okay. So the Magnus Opus has been carried forward in a New Age and Neo-Hermetic movements, which sometimes attaches new symbolism and significance to the processes. The original process of the process philosophy has 4 stages. It's got the nigredo, the blackening, or melanosis, which is a decomposition, is the first step. The blackening, okay, that's like the black colour. and then albedo. Albedo is the whitening. Okay, so that follows the sort of black decomposition stage, which is known as that massa confusa, like the confusion out of chaos stage. So I suppose the order out of chaos, out of the blackness comes then the white stage, and then it comes into a yellow stage, which is known as citrinitis, okay, or the yellowing, xanathosis, drawing of the internal solar light. Sort of that sort of thing. That's why I thought, it kind of, I thought it reminded me a little bit of like a sort of chakra talk, meditation talk, and kundalini talk, and the solar plexus. And that's known to be like the sort of seat of the soul, and the solar and the sun, and the sun's just kind of yellow. Kind of reminded me of that sort of thing. So we've gone from the blackness and the darkness of decomposition, which I suppose you could say perhaps that's akin to Buddhism, where they have like emptiness. Or you think emptiness is bad, but they think of emptiness as you need emptiness to put things in. So you got the blackening, melanosis, decomposition into the albedo, whitening stage, and citrinitis, yellowing, drawing out the solar light stage, and then next, the fourth stage, last one, rubedo, that red colour, the reddening, or purpling, or eosis, gold or a stone, which is red, or success. So talking like you've got the success, you turn it into gold, or you've got something that's red. The Philosopher's stone, which is often said to be red. So so these alchemists were essentially they're trying to do metallurgy, but they're trying to kind of do fine tuning metallurgy, trying to do some advanced stuff. It sounds like to me. Because they had to sort of precisely control temperatures as well. And I think about that, and then got modern lab equipment, and then they didn't have thermometers way back when, because the thermometer wasn't really standardised until like 17th and 18th century. Although it's been written that Greek philosophers thousands of years ago, before the principles of thermometers were known to Greek philosophers, like 2,000 years ago. But metallurgy goes back like to 3,500 BC. So, that's like 5,500 years ago. So it's like, what if thermometers aren't coming in until the 17th and 18th century? But they did know a bit about it a couple of thousand years ago. They might have known about it a bit more before. So it's like, well, perhaps this is some advanced stuff there. Long time to be doing metallurgy, and I don't know. Some food for thought sort of thing. But that was the thing. So it was thought that they followed these colour processes. So is it that they were just seeing impurities, seeing black and white and yellow and red? Or is it that, no, there really is something to that? And there is something to be said with chemistry in ancient medicine as well, looking at nature, looking at things with red in, things with blue in. Because the pigmentation was often in flora and fauna was often an indicator of what kind of chemicals is in there. I think, don't quote me, I'm 90% sure that I've seen it in a Richard L. Minner book actually. It was about herbs and stuff, sacred use of plants, and I think there was a colour system. I remember there's two of them. I think if like flowers and stuff that kind of blue or lilac, I think they had a certain like phosphorus in there, and then things that had red in had iron in there. So that kind of made sense. Iron in the blood, the red and stuff, oxidization. So no, there might be certain colour indicators in nature in this basic, in a kind of basic way that we don't really think of. So maybe they did know a little bit more than we can sort of give them credit for. And also this is coming from Hermes. So we're talking about the Hermes stuff. It was a central figure in mythology in the mythology of alchemy as well. It was a big Hermes. You've got to remember Hermes is known as Hermes Trismegistus. Trismegistus meaning thrice great. Not just good, not double good, brilliant. The guy was triple thumbs up. So that's what people called him. It's coming from Hermes, and a couple of Hermes in a past show. His name come up a couple of times, known as a Tahuti. It's supposed to be super duper smart dude, So, yeah, and his name derived from the god Thoth as well. Might have heard of Thoth. Some people say it's Toph was from Atlantis. So, you know, this Hermes dude, whatever he was pretty smart. And he was a central figure to alchemy. So if someone's known to be super smart and is a central figure to doing this stuff, you'd think, well, there's probably, maybe there's something to it. You know, maybe there is something to all of this. And it makes you wonder. But this is why you look, don't you? It's why you check it out and ask these questions. So, you know, it's coming up again. Like I say, past episodes, the staff of Hermes came up. You know, and he's a super scholarly guy. So you've got to wonder, is this staff of Hermes, which I was saying it kind of looks like the Cadius, the coiled serpents wrapping around the pillar. You know, so, I mean, I wonder if that comes up again. And right now I'm also thinking back to, you know, Philosopher's Stone, red, some of these weird chemical processes doing stuff, and it's like, I'm wondering now, thinking Chance. Mate, Chance is a ghost. Telling me about red mercury, reminding me about that. I can hear him in my head right now. So, you know, all these musings, wonderings in the brain, the Philosopher's Stone, maybe that's that element 115 or whatever it is. You know, the red mercury vapor. Maybe they've figured it out. But yeah, anyway, before I go too off the rails, just going to quickly go through this little bit of an article. I'll put it up on the screen. Just another quick bit of... I'll just blast through this, like 5 minutes or something, or whatever. Yeah, a few minutes. Just blast through this, like, mainstream, because it's a bit well better written than I've sort of written it down. Yeah, quick bit of mainstream history of alchemy. So I've just given you that a little bit of an overview. We'll have someone a bit more academic with the writing skills. Write it down, nice, read it to you. Okay. So it says the history... Oh, this is... I'll put the link in the description for this PDF. You can just sort of download it. Actually, if you want to download it, just like drop it in there. It's just 9 pages, but it's a nice overview of the history of alchemy. Academic references and stuff in the pages. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, it says the history of alchemy is flourishing. Several major international conferences in the past 5 years attested the richness of the subject in terms of both the number of scholars now working in the field and the range of approaches they are taking. While a core group of scholars is exploring topics of long-standing importance such as the relationship between alchemy, or as many prefer, chemistry, and matter theory, medicine, or mechanical philosophy, others have drawn on such tools as art history, religious history, and even archaeology to take the history of alchemy in new directions, linking it to the history of the body of economic history and the history of art, literature, and material culture. In short, scholars of alchemy are now engaging a broad and interdisciplinary array of topics that touch not only the history of science, but also on art, literature, and European social cultural history more broadly. The range of approaches and the topics of wide range of alchemy is important to scholars interested primarily in alchemica's relationship in the history of science, as they continue to engage approaching the topics through the perspective of history, philosophy, visual culture, or literature. Not surprisingly, however, alchemy remains a particularly salient topic for the history of science, especially in the modern period. This is in part the case because, as we know, some of the most illustrious figures of the period, including Robert Boyle and Isaac Newton, engaged in academic seriously. Now we've heard of Isaac Newton and Robert Boyle. These are key figures. Yeah, we'll get a quick wiki up of Robert Boyle, because these are. I mean, alchemy was like you'd be poo-pooed a lot, but you got to think Isaac Newton, famous for physics, Newtonian physics, man, the founder of physics. Look, and we got Robert Boyle, famed science guy, physics and chemistry. I mean, he's the guy that, look, Boyle is largely regarded today as the first modern chemist. So this is where chemistry is coming from, you know. So I mean, that's so like I say, we don't just although it's say, at least for me anyway, I always thought of alchemy as just one of them stupid things trying to turn things into gold. But then that's sort of where the sort of basis of sort of chemistry was coming from. So I mean, you know, it's interesting. It's interesting. But there's this idea that you can get these strange elements from there, you know, and it's been studied for a long time. Like I say, when I think as a European, you know, person living in Europe, you know, white guy, it's like, well, I'm acutely aware that my particular civilization was under ice when the rest of the world were doing stuff. You know, it's, you know, India and Africa and, you know, Asia and Africa and Middle East, they've been going around longer, aren't they, with civilization? You know, so and this alchemy stuff, it sort of came to Europe kind of last, sort of thing. So, you know, so let's have a look at, or on the sort of official sort of Wikipedia reference versions. We'll just have a quick look at what a standard scholarly sort of account on Wikipedia says about Chinese alchemy. So I thought I'd search that specifically, put Chinese in front of it, because it's where some of these stuff's coming from originally. So let's see what it says about it from that perspective. I mean, also as well, you've got to think about like talking off the back of, like, you know, people like physics with Newton and Robert Boyle, you know, chemistry coming through off the back of alchemy. I'm also thinking of like this sort of basic stuff you can think of as well, that we're like things like fermentation and using pigments from flowers or from where you get colour pigment from, and making perfumes and sort of cleaning things to clean with. That's kind of basic alchemy, isn't it, as well? You know, mixing stuff together and sort of things happening, sort of chemistry happening, biological processes happening. It's, you know, so I suppose people have been probably doing alchemy by accident since forever. Yeah. I'm just thinking of George's Marvellous Medicine in the Roald Dahl book at the minute. It's thinking, I should chuck these things together and you get something incredible. It's by chance. But yeah, let's see what it says about Chinese alchemy then. Let's see what Wikipedia's got to say about that. So in Chinese alchemy is an ancient Chinese scientific and technological approach to alchemy, as a part of a larger tradition of Taoist or Taoist body-spirit cultivation developed from traditional Chinese understanding of medicine and the body. According to original texts, such as the Canton Key, the body is understood as a focus of cosmological processes, summarized in the 5 agents of change, or the Wu Xing, the observation and cultivation of which leads the practitioner into enlightenment and harmony with the Tao, you know, two opposing forces, two vortexes. Therefore, the traditional view in China is that alchemy focuses mainly on the longevity and the purification of one's spirit, mind and body, providing health, longevity and wisdom through the practice of Qigong, Wuzheng Hen Qidao, the consumption of and use of various concoctions known as alchemical medicines or elixirs, which have in purposes a bit larger. They've got different reasons for the concoctions, but mostly it was concerning immortality. And of course, famously, Conqueror Genghis Khan. Yeah, it was a quest for immortality. You know, so perhaps, you know, that alchemy, perhaps that was the driver behind Genghis Khan's quest for immortality, is doing it through the alchemy. And maybe that was, I mean, it says that it's written in history about Genghis Khan that he was totally obsessed with immortality. He was on a permanent quest for, like, eternal life. And it says in the accounts in 1222, he summoned Taoist master Kyo Chuji. He asked him he asked him if he could prepare an immortality potion for him. And Kyo Chuji, he replied that there's no such thing as an immortality potion. And he said, but that life can be extended through abstinence. So, I don't suppose he liked to hear that. You got to stop drinking, bro. Live longer. But yeah, he was famously obsessed with it. In fact, I think Genghis Khan he ended up turning into just mercury straight up. You know, obviously poisoned himself. Probably sent him nuts. But yeah, it says in medieval times, and modern sources describe it, Genghis Khan's conquest, as the wholesale destruction of unprecedented scale, causing great demographic changes and drastic decline in population, the result of mass extermination and famine. That was his thing. He was sweeping the world looking for the philosopher's stone, perhaps. It says a conservative estimate of the amounts of about 4 million civilians, whereas other figures ranging from 40 to 60 million who lost their lives as a consequence of Genghis Khan's military campaigns. That's a lot, man. So, yeah, either 4 million or 40 plus. That's a lot. But it says that, in contrast, the Buddhist Uyghurs of the kingdom, who willingly left the empire, became Mongols, and viewed him as a liberator. So some people, not everyone's saying it's not so bad. Some people, I suppose if you're oppressed and then this guy comes along and makes you, I don't know, beats the slaves up, beats the slave masters up, and you might be like, yeah, stick it to him. Yeah. But yeah, he was famously on a quest for immortality with the transmutation of elements, like say, messing around with mercury, which is not a good idea, folks. It's probably, so you don't want to be doing that. But yeah. Although, but I do want to say, just to be fair to Genghis Khan, the researchers at Genghis Khan University in Mongolia suggest that these days, they say that towards the end of his life, he kind of chilled out a bit. Towards the end of his life, he actually legislated laws to ensure there was equal rights to all citizens, and especially women. So yeah, chilled out a bit towards the end there. Probably got a bit obsessive with his quest, and I thought, yeah, let me calm down a bit. But yeah, go back to Chinese medicine. Yeah, it says Chinese medicine. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Europe was kind of like last to get all of this stuff, sort of thing. And it was introduced. Alchemy was introduced to Europe, and Taoism sort of later on, and it comes in like two distinct classical parts. And there's Dao Jia, which is Tao Chia. It's a bit like Tai Chi, Tao Chia, which was the mystical side, stemmed primarily from Lao Tzu and Xiaozheng philosophers, and the more popular Dao Jiao, which is Tao Chao, Tai Chi and Tao Chao. I don't know quite the difference, but it says that Tao Chao was more popular, magical or alchemical side of Taoism. Okay, in general, classical Dao Jia was more austere, whereas Dao Jiao was more practiced by the general populace. Oh, okay, so there's a more mysterious one, and then one that everyday one that everybody does. Okay. So that might be a bit like, everyone around your area might be doing Tai Chi, but some people might be like really into it, doing a bit of Qigong or something a bit obscure. Yeah, okay. It says, whereas most European writers gave credit to the origins of alchemy to the Greeks in Egypt in the 3rd AD, Obden Johnson showed that alchemy started at least 500 years earlier in China. So there we are. So let's have a picture of this guy up. Here he is, Obden Simpson Johnson. So I'll pop him up on screen just for the video, just so we can give him a bit of a big up. So I'll put all the links in the description as normal anyway. So yeah, Obden Simpson Johnson, yeah, proved that alchemy started at least 500 years earlier in China. So Chinese philosophy and alchemy thought that the earth was sort of like one giant organism, and so sought to detect its vital channels of energy and transmutation using magnets. They invented a formal system of earth magnetism science called feng shui. Might have heard of that. So I'm thinking perhaps these magnetic fields or something akin to like ley lines. Maybe that's the same sort of thing, And then I'm thinking that probably complements things like meditation and breathing techniques, and they've got that meridian line system in Chinese medicine, relating to the human body. So maybe they're perhaps looking at the planet as having a body with meridian lines, the same as the human body in that, And it was and that's where gunpowder came from as well. So for the the chemistry coming out of alchemy. So that's, makes you wonder. So much stuff come from here. But like I say, there's this search for immortality as well, and that sort of elixir of life, So there's other practices as well that has come from alchemy that's perhaps not so well known. There was one known as Paracelsus, which I think it's. I think of this Paracelsus as something perhaps similar to the thing that you get in video games with the Elder Scrolls series, where you're kind of mixing herbs and plants. It's the stuff you kind of see in films. The wise woman, everyone thinks is a witch, but really she's nice and just smart. Kind of mix stuff together and make sort of herbal stuff. So yeah, but I'll give a proper explanation of Paracelsus. So it says Paracelsus. This is a guy. He's got a really long name, but I'll try and say it. He took on the name as Paracelsus, but his full name is Philippus Aurelius Theophrastus Bombastus von Hohenheim, born November 11th, or they're not quite sure, December 17th, 1493, Switzerland. He learned of materials that grow in the earth. Okay, watched the transformation of metallic constitutes in smelting vats. Seen people doing metallurgy and stuff, melting metals, making stuff, and perhaps wondered about transmutation of lead into gold. A conversation believed to be possible out by alchemists of the time. These experiences have Paracelsus' insight into metallurgy and chemistry, which likely laid the foundations of his later remarkable discoveries in chemotherapy. So there's a whole sort of field of study that came off of the back of this Paracelsusism. So again, I'll put the links in the description. But that was an early modern medical movement based on theories of Paracelsus. Doing these studies, it developed in the second half of the 16th century during the decades following Paracelsus' death in 1541. It flourished during the first half of the 17th century, representing one of the most comprehensive alternatives to learned medicine, the traditional system of therapeutics derived from Galilean physiology. Okay, so this was like it's sort of a medicine alternative at the time. Okay, so because this is how science works. You don't. Science isn't done by consensus. Okay, science is done by, you tend to get a larger body of science which is looking at things and saying, it goes this sort of way, all right, and then you get a smaller group that's working against that always and saying, no, I think it does something different. Okay, and then it's almost like it's not a battle, it's just like they lean against each other. There's always a sort of dissenting voice, and then eventually all the great discoveries come from that dissenting voice, because that's the bits on the edges sort of thing, cause that's just like science. That's what science is. But anyway, back to the article. Yeah, it's based on because it was saying there's something different based on the by then antiquated principles of maintaining harmony between the microcosm and the macrocosm. Paracelsusism fell rapidly into decline in the later 17th century, but left its mark in medical practices. It was responsible for widespread introduction of mineral therapies and several other iatrochemical techniques. Okay. So we did get some real science and real chemistry out of this stuff. They did have. So say there was this kind of mystique around it because of the code in the books, and people say, poo-pooing it, debunking, saying, just seeing different colours of impurities, but been doing this stuff since forever, so really is something to it. And they used to have this notion as well of there's this thing called the alchemist. Okay, I put a quick shot of that up there. Yeah, the alchemist. It's like, well, this was this idea that it says in Renaissance alchemy that alchemist was the theorized universal solvent. It was supposed to be capable of dissolving any other substance, including gold, without altering or destroying the fundamental. So it's like, well, it's almost like, it's another one of those magical, mythical materials. But they had some like ingredients for it. They said it derived from lime, alcohol, and potash containing carbon. Paracelsus was known for revolution. Is like a revolutionary thought of introducing salt as a third element that makes up metals. Okay. So I mean, it's like what? So alchemists bring in all this sort of philosophy and other stuff in, and it's into the investigation. It's bringing the debate. It's bringing the debate into it. I think this is one of the main things that alchemy's done, other than discoveries that's come from it, and finding out, what's going on with processes and chemistry and biology and stuff. It's also bringing the idea of debate in as well. The debate into the investigation of the nature of just stuff. What is things? And famously, probably one of the most famous products that alchemists produced was from metallurgist Johannes Gutenberg, who invented a way to do. It's basically he was the guy that was able to make the mass printing press possible, to make it cheap enough to just blast things out. He was able to make a printing press where you could like move the letters and stuff, move the type around. So then you could just that's when printing that revolutionised things. That did editable printing press stuff, and that was just some bit of metallurgy. Tin, lead, antimonium. Yeah, he also pioneered using oil in inks, oil-based inks. And it's one of the inventor people, isn't it? You've got a cheese press of the time, to repurpose it to be like your printing press stuff. So you can make them loads faster, more accurate. Once you've, as long as you've got one right, as long as you read through it, it's right. You ain't got to keep writing it down every time, have you? Just keep printing stuff off. Soon changes things, switches things up. So yeah, it's just, it's one of them, isn't it? So yeah, so they've got these like strange coded books that they have these like mythical, these strange substances that seem a bit, that like has some special solvent that you're going to get, like some secret recipe. And no wonder people started blasting through the books, and it used to be a really popular pastime to try and crack some of the codes in the stories of these. Those code books. So I don't know. I can see why there's a lot of allure to it and sort of romanticism about the older alchemy. But yeah, anyway, moving on. There's a famous, what used to be famous, Latin book. It was in Latin. It's on the nature of metals. In Latin, it's De Re Metallica. And this is a famous book. This was quite important to the history of alchemy. In Latin, let's say it's on the nature of metals, this book. And this book is Latin, basically it's a catalogue. Catalogues a state-of-the-art mining and refining and smelting metals. It was first published in 1556, but it was written before that. Just had to do it a bit late. I had to while they get their printing presses sorted out and got the blocks for the text to cut and stuff. But yeah, the author George Bauer, whose pen was named Latinized. Bauer was it? Yeah. It's come out. So this book, it goes back way back. But this important and famous book, De Re Metallica, it was written in 1556, but it didn't want translated into English until 1912 by 31st American President Herbert Hoover, interestingly enough. So I mean, it's like so some of these texts aren't coming to us until late in Europe. You know what I'm saying? 1912, that is. But it's again there. It's like, well, we've got another link back to Hermes again. It's in the front cover, shows us the two snakes again crawling around a central pillar. We've got the staff of Hermes again. So that's come back in because it's all Hermes is central to this stuff, and that the philosophers and chemistry of ancient Africa, Kemet, You know, this stuff always loops back around. Like, say if it's supposed to be the cradle of civilization, then, you know, I suppose it's gonna keep going back that way. But yeah, I mean, yeah. So yeah, we didn't get that until 1912. So it's obviously it's sort of getting popular in that, and then in this, like I mentioned earlier, in the 70s, you know, the Kemet study and linking things back into Africa got really popular, and it was in 1980 that Nobel Prize winning American chemist Professor Glenn T. Seaberg actually did in fact succeed in transmuting a non-precious metal, bismuth, into gold. That's right, someone actually did do it. 1980. It was a bismuth 209. That was the metal, transmuted into gold at Lawrence Berkeley Laboratory. So someone actually did do it. I mean, it was 1980, and it said it cost more than what the amount of gold it was worth. You know, you can do it. You just expect to spend a lot of money and not to get much gold made. But it did show that you can actually do it. So all that time, and that sort of one of the main goals. I mean, like we've seen, it was immortality, or at least longevity was one of the main goals for alchemy. But this other sort of main goal, a more famous goal of turning the base metal into, you know, a noble metal, aka gold or silver, and in this case, yeah, gold. All them years, man, told it's not possible. Assuming it's just stupid stuff, and yet here we are in the sort of modern era, 1980. We've done it, been able to do it for a while. And I mean, I think they had to just bombard it with like get lots of extra neutrons into it. Okay, but it gets you wondering, doesn't it? You know, because been doing metallurgy since a long time. Been doing this. This is what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It goes. You got to wonder what people knew, and maybe this is what I'm getting to. It's like maybe there is other ways to do stuff. You know, maybe there's other ways. I mean, that's 1980, and a few thousand years. Maybe it's just another way. Maybe it's just to bring in radiation, like drop some uranium in there, and it just do stuff. I don't know. You don't know, do you? You don't know. But then I found this. Right, I was in looking into this, but then I found this. It says into looking into the history of alchemy, and I found this shocking article, this shocking headline, and I thought, what? And I checked it out, and there's an invention, there's a patent with it. So I thought, well, okay, there we go then. So here it is, right? Is this shocking headline that I came across researching this stuff? It was like okay. I was like, all right, let's have a look. And it basically is saying that it says Russian scientists announce historic discovery rendering the entire system obsolete. It's like, what? So why? Oh shit. It's like, okay. Let's say that again. Russian scientists announce historic discovery rendering the entire system obsolete. So what's this then? What's the entire system obsolete? So it's a bit stick one to the New World Order, the way this article is written. So I'll just say this is just me reading the article. But it's just kind of funny the way it's written. But yeah, this is geopolitics.co. I'll put the links in the description so you can read it yourself, but put it on the video. I'll just screen share it. But yeah, I'll read the whole bit actually because it's kind of funny. But in another challenge to the Khazarian Mafia Babylonian paper magic financial system and the entire pyramid of cartels, 2 Russian scientists revealed a groundbreaking discovery that is expected to change every system built for the last millennia. That's a big claim. It says chemical transmutation, specifically involving lead into gold, was first heard within the occult sciences known as alchemy. Then it was the same occultism that continued to suppress using the national security all-encompassing excuse against free energy activist John Bedini, who successfully transmuted copper into gold using 5,000 Celsius of heat. further explaining why countries above the Ring of Fire, like the Philippines, have so much natural gold deposits that's been extracted by foreign mining firms for decades. To put it simply, there is more than one way to produce gold, naturally and artificially. And this very valuable element has more than one application too, not just in the realm of electronics industry, but also within our physical well-being. It has been made part of man's pursuit for longevity for thousands of years, which we covered there. You know, the health. What is the health benefits? Is the health benefits to gold then? You know, this talk about that can stop your telomeres getting shorter, which would stop you from aging. So if you get it small enough, monoatomic gold, which, you know, I don't know how true that stuff is, but yeah. So, you know, I'll carry on reading anyway. It says, so why is this knowledge pertaining to all of the above not available to us right now? It says, in one word, capitalism. So it can be all down to capitalism, but that's what it says here. But anyway, the profit-orientated capitalism, maybe we're talking about fairness and transparency. But anyway, the article says in geopolitics.co, link in the description, the profit-orientated capitalism in conjunction with the monetary-based economic system has aborted humanity's march towards space-age progress. It has deterred us from achieving our full potential. All technologies have been discovered and are deliberately suppressed by patent acquisition and shelving. This can make existing control paradigm. Discoveries like this could make the existing control paradigm obsolete overnight. Those who are addicted to these systems could be neutralized if we are able to take a step to the next level of evolution that's been delayed for more than 100 years. And it goes on to say, you know, this is exactly what BRICS and countries are trying to do. It's basically talking about trying to break away in order to weaken the clout of the Rothschild banking dynasty that is protecting the status quo. Both Russia and China started buying vast quantities of gold available on the open market. This didn't cause a significant increase on the price of gold, silver right away, because those prices were already under intense systematic rigging in the first place. It's quite damning, this article. In order to protect the integrity of the legal tender, global exchange currency, i.e. the Federal Reserve dollar. However, the stable, it's going on about the stability of prices, okay, right, because of this discovery. Because, yeah, it would, you know, what can you do with this is the thing, what could you do if you can create gold? What would that do to global stock prices? What would that do to in terms of power management and do you know what I mean? Wealth and where wealth is and what gets done and stuff. Do you know what I'm saying? And that's the thing. So, I mean, is this true? I mean, it's the scientists and the scientists that and the chemists, Mrs. Tamara Sahano and Mr. Viktor Kurasov. And so it's like, well, okay, there's a link to the paper, so I've translated the paper. I had to do a Russian translator and that, so you can see it on the screen. But yeah, here's the paper. I'll put the link in the description. Found the patent. Yeah, I did a Google Translate thing. Translated it for a bit at a time, like half a paragraph at a time. Yeah, as much as I can fit in. Yeah, and copied the English bit and typed it all out and read through it. And it's like, yeah. You know, you can do it yourself. You can just copy. You can go to the Russian patent, get it from the link, load it up, copy some Russian to English. You know, just read it yourself. And that's what I encourage. You go and check this stuff out for yourself. Serious, because it's nuts. But I've read this. I'm reading this patent, and it's like, yeah. I'll give you a quick excerpt from it. It says, yeah, this invention relates to the field of biotechnology and transmutation of chemical elements. Thinking, okay, it really is about transmuting things. Because you got to wonder if are these rubbishy stories are made up, they clickbait a headline, but it wasn't right in my face. I had to, I was looking through the history of alchemy. It's come across this thing buried somewhere, but yeah, okay, I'll read a bit more. I mean, you can look at the pattern. It's kind of saying, yeah. Radioactive raw materials containing radioactive chemical elements and their isotopes are treated with aqueous suspension of bacteria of the genus Theobacillus in the presence of elements with variable valence. It says ores and radioactive waste from nuclear cycles are used as radioactive raw materials. The method is carried out with obtaining polonium, radium, radium, thorium, uranium, neptunium, nickel, magnesium, bromine, all these chemicals listed, gold, platinum, and their isotopes. The invention makes it possible to obtain valuable radioactive elements. Valuable radioactive elements in inactive nuclear waste, with the conversion of radioactive isotopes of waste elements into stable isotopes. So this is talking like it could neutralize radioactive waste and make it kind of inert and stable. You know, so that'd be amazing, man. You can get this. I mean, if this turns out to be real, I mean, they got the patent, but if it turns out to be real, maybe we can turn some radioactive waste and make it not bad. That'd be really handy. Like I say, if we could turn some of this stuff into gold, that'd be awesome, wouldn't it? It'd be really cool. I don't know, man. I don't know. You know, just read a little bit more, because it's just like, it seems to pan out, man. I've translated it, read it in English, it makes sentences. Yeah, it says known transformations of chemical process elements and the formation of new isotopes of elements and new chemical elements during nuclear decays and synthesis of chemical elements used in traditional nuclear reactors and nuclear power plants. In scientific nuclear reactors, for example, when chemical elements are irradiated with neutrons or protons or alpha particles. So I don't know what they're doing. Whether I said that earlier, didn't I? Maybe they drop some uranium next to the metals while it's really hot and does something. But yeah, that makes sense, man. Transmutation, right? Mutation. And we see in all the comics and the movies, man, you get too radiation, man. You know, get too close to the radioactive spiders bite you. You know what happens? Before you know it, you're a reporter taking pictures, earning minimum wage. Bit swinging around the sitter in front of neighborhood Spider-Man. But yeah, I mean, who knows? That's like Godzilla radiation, isn't it? Mutation, Godzilla. But yeah, I mean, who knows? Who knows what's goes on with this stuff? So yeah, I mean, that's what the article says. This is what the patent says. It says they can transmute stuff, you know, and they've also got, if I just share this, they've got the tokamak reactor as well. Russia, they got that. This is the most viable candidate for fusion power. You know, the device uses magnetic fields to combine plasma in a torus shape. So that's the sort of I think of that as a high physics kind of alchemy kind of stuff. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, but because yeah, I think there's some advanced stuff that we've known in the past. I really do. And I'm not saying it's all. Or everything was much better back in the day, but I think a lot of stuff we don't give them credit for, the ancients. So I don't know, man. See what you think. Because like I said, if you create gold, then you can really start messing about, can't you, with the economies and stuff. But I don't know. It seems interesting. It throws a bit of curveball out there, doesn't it? But anyway. See what you think, folks. I mean, that's today's episodes on the Exiled Minds of Liam podcast. The links are, as always, links are in the description. So I mean, you just see what you think. Check this stuff out. Go and have a read of that Russian patent thing. It's easy. It didn't take too much to translate it into, from Google Translate. Just copy paste it in there. But yeah, have a look at this stuff for yourself and see what you think, folks. And tune into the Exiled Minds podcast next time. See you later.
People